The galaxy was old and full of secrets, and some of those secrets were warnings carved into the records of empires long gone. One warning repeated across the ages, etched into tablets, whispered in data streams, passed on even by those who had never seen Earth with their own eyes. Do not disturb the world of soul. Most called it superstition. Others said it was a story told to frighten explorers. But the warning never faded. It lingered like a shadow, as if the universe itself wanted to keep one truth alive. Scholars studied the old archives, confused by the lack of detail. There were fragments of star maps pointing to Earth, reports of sudden wars that ended without explanation, and broken logs that simply ended with silence. Some alien historians claimed the humans were a warrior race who had fought gods and monsters in the deep past, and for reasons unknown, they had fallen asleep. Others believed humans had destroyed themselves in one of their many violent conflicts, leaving behind ruins and nothing more. Whatever the truth was, every culture that dug too deeply into Earth's history came away with the same conclusion. Earth was a place better left untouched. Still, curiosity always gnawed at the ambitious Proteus, the younger species of the galaxy. Bold and eager to expand, laughed at the tales. They thought the warnings were nonsense, created by fearful old civilizations that had crumbled under their own weakness. Why should anyone fear a planet locked away in a small system on the edge of nowhere? Why should anyone believe in ghosts of warriors that no longer lived? Greed often shouted louder than caution. Among those who ignored the whispers was the Cathari Dominion, a proud empire with fleets that stretched across hundreds of stars. They were hunters by nature, always seeking prey to prove their dominance. Their scouts had discovered strange energy signatures beneath the ice of Earth's moon. Old power sources, faint but steady, still pulsed after centuries of silence. To the Cathari, this was not a warning, but an opportunity. They sent word to their allies, forming a coalition fleet to investigate. Soon, hundreds of ships began their journey toward the Sol system, eager to plunder whatever relics the planet held. In the great council chambers of other species, voices of concern rose. The Olorine warned that the humans were not gone, but waiting. The Thrix pointed to star charts, where whole fleets had disappeared in the region centuries before. But the Cathari laughed at them. If the humans were so powerful, where are they now? Admiral Kelver, commander of the fleet, sneered. The strong do not vanish into the dirt. They conquer. They rule. Earth is silent because it is empty. But Earth was not empty. Beneath its oceans, under layers of salt water and forgotten trenches, titans of metal lay sleeping. Beneath its deserts, covered in endless sand, bunkers hummed with power too quiet for alien sensors to notice. In frozen mountains, behind walls of ice, chambers of cryogenic sleep held men and women in perfect stillness, their hearts frozen. In time, waiting for a signal, the planet had not died. It had hidden, sealed away, conserving its strength until the day came when the universe pushed too far. That day was approaching. The first Cathari scouts entered the system, gliding past the orbit of Neptune. They scanned the void, reporting no defense satellites, no signs of civilization, just a pale sun and a handful of worlds circling it. They laughed among themselves, sending data back to Admiral Kelver. This system is weak, one scout captain boasted. The stories were nothing. The humans are dust. Yet their laughter carried a strange echo, as if the universe itself disapproved. For every alien voice that mocked the warnings, there were others who shivered in silence, feeling something stir in their bones. Space itself seemed heavier around Sol, as if the very stars were holding their breath. On Earth, small signals began to awaken. Deep within the crust, machinery older than memory flickered to life. Silent beacons, hidden in canyons and mountains, began to pulse in rhythm. One by one, they called out across the planet. And in chambers, buried under rock and steel, eyes long closed began to move. Fingers twitched, breath returned to lungs. Men and women who had once been guardians of humanity were stirring. Daniel Brooks opened his eyes in the darkness of a cryopod. He gasped, his body shaking as cold mist escaped around him. Confusion filled his mind, but training buried deep in his memory guided him. The first thought that entered his waking mind was not of peace, but of duty. The signal, he whispered to no one. They've come. In another chamber, Claire. Morgan's pod released a hiss of steam. She stumbled out, her body weak, but her spirit sharp. Alarms rang in her ears. Systems she had never seen before were flashing red, displaying information of intruders in the system. She pressed her hand against a console, her heart pounding. The humans were awake again, because someone had dared to cross the line, the universe. Headset. Far above, the alien fleet continued its advance. Great carriers, sharp destroyers, and monstrous battleships filled the black sky like a storm. To them, Earth was prey. To Earth, they were the trigger. And the whisper of caution that had echoed across time was about to become thunder. The galaxy had been warned. But warnings only mattered to those wise enough to listen. The Cathari and their allies had chosen arrogance. Soon, they would learn what the universe already knew. Humans were not gone. They were waiting. And now, they were waking. The coalition fleet arrived like a storm of metal and fire, their ships blotting out the stars as they crossed into the Sol system. Admiral Kelver stood at the bridge of his flagship, a towering vessel bristling with weapons. Around him, his officers barked reports, their voices filled with excitement and pride. This was supposed to be the moment the Cathari Dominion proved that the ancient warnings were just lies. The fleet numbered in the hundreds. Sleek cruisers armed with plasma cannons, massive carriers that carried thousands of soldiers, and frigates moving like predators among the stars. Other alien species followed them too, some willingly, some reluctantly bound by alliances. Together, they thought they were unstoppable. To them, Sol was a small, quiet system, no more dangerous than the countless others they had conquered. But even as they advanced, not all were confident. Among the Zathari, a nervous ambassador whispered to his captain, "This is wrong." The archive spoke clearly. Sol is cursed. Humans do not die, they wait. His words were ignored, drowned by laughter and the roar of engines. Fear was weakness in the Dominion, and none wished to be seen as cowards. Their first target was Earth's moon. Strange signals had been coming from beneath its surface, faint but steady, like the heartbeat of something ancient. Kelver ordered his ships into orbit around the gray sphere, scanning with every tool they had. The results only confused them. Massive structures were buried deep under the ice, far older than any technology they knew. Relics, one officer said. Old ruins, nothing more. We'll strip them down and sell the cores. They never stopped to ask why those cores were still beating in the shadows of Earth's orbit. Small fragments of metal drifted among the debris. To the alien scanners, they were junk, leftovers from a dead world. But those fragments were not lifeless. They were dormant sentinels, hidden guardians waiting for a signal. As the alien ships drew closer, the fragments stirred. Lights flickered. Inside, systems began to hum, and their ancient weapons locked on to the intruders. The first shot came silently. A beam of pure energy lanced through the darkness, striking a Cathari frigate before its shields could even register the attack. In an instant, the ship was gone, shattered into burning fragments. Panic rippled across the fleet as alarms blared. What was that? Where did it come from? Captains shouted over the comms. More beams followed. This time from dozens of hidden satellites, buried weapons left behind by human hands. The moon itself seemed to bleed light as hidden gun platforms emerged from beneath the ice. They fired without mercy, cutting through cruisers and destroyers like paper. Kelver snarled, demanding order. Form ranks. It is only automated defense. Push forward and destroy them. His words calmed his officers, but deep inside, even he felt a chill. Automated defenses were expected. But this was not random fire. This was coordinated. The weapons were moving like hunters, striking weak points, tearing apart ships in ways no machine should know. As the battle raged near the moon, Earth stirred. Across the planet, sensors activated. Old satellites, thought to be long dead, came alive, their eyes glowing in the dark. They scanned the skies, feeding data to bunkers hidden deep below. Inside those bunkers, men and women stumbled from cryogenic sleep, confused but instinctively reaching for weapons, uniforms, and consoles. Daniel Brooks found himself standing on the deck of a half-lit control room, his hands shaking as he touched the panel. Maps of the system lit up before him, alien ships swarming like locusts. His throat went dry. "They came," he whispered. He turned to the others around him, still waking, their eyes wide with shock and fear. They dared to come. In another facility, Claire Morgan ran down a metal hallway, her steps echoing. She reached a hangar bay where old starfighters were, already humming, their engines coming alive after centuries of silence. Crews that had been frozen for generations were suddenly awake, moving with purpose as if they had never slept. She placed her hand on the cold steel of a fighter's wing, her heart racing. "They don't know what they've done," she said quietly, almost pitying the intruders. Above Earth, the alien fleet continued its push. They fired on the defenses, destroying satellites and tearing apart the hidden platforms on the moon. Slowly, they began to break through. Victory seemed within reach. But then, the oceans of Earth stirred far below the surface. In trenches deeper than mountains, something massive moved. Towers of steel rose from the seafloor, breaking through the waves. Water cascaded down there. Sides as the first human warships revealed themselves. They were colossal, older than the Dominion itself, yet still perfect. Their armor gleaming as if forged yesterday. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, they rose from the sea like giants. Their weapons charging with energy so old and so advanced that alien sensors failed to classify it. From the deserts, from the mountains, from under the ice more ships emerged. The coalition fleet paused in shock. Admiral Kelver's jaw clenched as he realized too late that the warnings had not been lies. Earth was not silent because it was empty. Oh, Earth was silent because it was waiting, and now the humans were awake. The sky above Earth was torn with thunder as the first of the warships fully rose from the oceans. Great rivers of salt water spilled from their armored hulls, crashing back into the waves as their engines lit with a deep, terrifying glow. They were not ships built for exploration or peace. They were weapons of survival, designed in an age when humanity had faced extinction and swore never to be weak again. Their silhouettes blocked the stars, colossal and unyielding. Inside those ships, men and women coughed as they pulled themselves from cryogenic sleep. Their lungs burned as they dragged in air for the first time in centuries. They stumbled, weak at first, but their training returned quickly, as though it had only been yesterday that they had last fought. The cryopods had preserved more than their bodies, they had preserved purpose. Humanity had gone to sleep with one command embedded in their bones: awaken if danger comes. Daniel Brooks stood barefoot on the cold steel floor of the battleship, resolute. His vision swam as the cryomist cleared, but the console before him came alive, filling the chamber with golden light. His hands trembled as he reached out, brushing the controls. They recognized him instantly, systems unlocking with a welcoming chime. Reports scrolled across the screen, telling of fleets rising from every ocean trench, of hangars opening in canyons, of weapons long sealed beginning to hum. His breath caught in his throat. Humanity was back. Elsewhere, in the sprawling hangar bays of the carrier Endurance, Claire Morgan steadied herself against a railing, her chest heaving as she looked out. Rows upon rows of fighters stood waiting, their dark wings shining under the lights. Pilots climbed from their pods, blinking away centuries of dreams. Mechanics and crews snapped into motion as if no time had passed, pulling open tool racks, checking fuel lines, and powering up systems. The air thrummed with life. Claire's voice broke the silence, strong and steady, despite the weight of the tense moment. "Suit up," she ordered. "If they came here to wake us, let's make sure they regret it." The alien fleet in orbit could not yet see what was happening below. Their sensors picked up energy surges, but they dismissed them as old machines sputtering one last time before dying. But then, the oceans roared again, and one by one, ships broke free of Earth's surface. Destroyers shot upward, cutting the skies with streaks of fire. Carriers rose like mountains, launching swarms of fighters. And finally, the dreadnoughts emerged massive. Ancient beasts that dwarfed anything the aliens had brought. One dreadnought, older than memory, rose from the Pacific Ocean with such force that tidal waves hammered distant shores. Its name lit across its hull, Eternal Watch. The alien coalition froze when their scanners locked onto its mass. Its weapons, its impossible energy core. Admiral Kelver's confidence faltered. He had seen massive ships before, but never anything that radiated such quiet menace. This was not a relic. This was a predator. The first clash was sudden. Human interceptors burst from Earth's atmosphere, sleek and deadly, their engines whispering a sound the aliens had never heard. They flew in perfect formations, their pilots moving as if guided by one mind. They tore through the alien vanguard, their weapons precise, cutting down frigates before the larger ships even reacted. Explosions lit the void, scattering debris across the system. On the Resolute, Daniel gripped the command chair as the ship rose into orbit. Crew members hurried to their stations, eyes wide but determined. A voice from the console reported, "Multiple hostile fleets detected coalition strength, overwhelming." Daniel's lips curled into something between fear and defiance. "Good," he muttered. "Let's remind them why the warnings exist." Claire led her squadron into the fire, her fighter weaving between enemy cannons with impossible agility. She moved like she had been born in the cockpit, her instincts sharper than any alien pilot's training. Her voice filled the comms. "Stay tight, strike fast, make them bleed." Her fighters cut deep into the coalition formation, forcing their cruisers to scatter. For the first time, the aliens realized they were not facing ruins or ghosts. They were facing warriors. From the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kelver watched his ships burn. His officers shouted for orders, fear rising in their voices. "It is not possible." One cried, "They should not exist." They were supposed to be dead. Kelver's claws dug into his chair. The warnings he had mocked now echoed in his mind. He had awoken something far worse than legends, and still. More ships rose from Earth. Not just warships, but whole fleets, each one older than the coalition itself. They were not fragile or rusted. They were alive, restored, built to last for eternity. Every second, more came online, more humans woke, more weapons glowed to life. The Sol system was no tomb. It was an armory. The universe had whispered for ages, "Do not wake the humans," but the coalition had not listened. Now, in the darkness of space, the humans' eyes burned with fire, and their voices carried across the comms like the return of a storm. "This is Earth's command." Daniel's voice thundered through the void, calm yet merciless. "We are awake." The battle near Saturn began with silence, the kind of silence that settles before a storm tears the sky apart. The alien coalition had regrouped after their first disastrous losses near Earth. Hundreds of ships now orbited the rings of Saturn, their massive engines glowing in the darkness, their weapons aimed toward the inner planets. Admiral Kelver stood, tall on his flagship's bridge, his voice cold as steel. "They are flesh and bone," he growled, "and we are Empire. We will drown them in fire." His officers roared their approval, though behind their eyes, fear still lingered. But the humans did not attack in haste. They waited, hidden in the shadows of the gas giant. Their ships masked by strange energy fields that no alien sensor could pierce. For hours, the coalition scanned, finding nothing but echoes. Then, without warning, the rings of Saturn seemed to split apart as human warships emerged in formation. The sight froze every alien captain in their seats. The humans had not just returned to space, they had mastered it. Their ships moved with the precision of a blade. The first volley came from the dreadnought Eternal Watch, its rail cannons unleashed. A thunderous blast, firing slugs the size of buildings at speeds that cracked through space-time itself. One coalition battleship vanished in an instant, reduced to debris before its shields could even flare. Seconds later, beams of pure white energy lanced from the Resolute, carving through destroyers with surgical precision. The alien fleet panicked. What they thought would be a slaughter of humans had instead become their nightmare. Daniel Brooks sat in the command chair of the Resolute, his hands steady as the ship trembled under the recoil of its weapons. The faces of his crew reflected both terror and awe, but Daniel's voice was calm. "Target their carriers, break their spine." The ship responded like it was alive, its systems moving faster than thought. Guided by human instincts sharpened across centuries. One by one, the coalition's massive carriers fell, their destruction lighting Saturn's rings like fire in the night. Meanwhile, Claire Morgan's squadron tore into the enemy like hawks among crows. Her fighter screamed across the void, its engines glowing blue as she dove straight into a wall of enemy interceptors. Lasers and plasma bolts lit the black sky, but Claire moved like the universe itself, bent around her. She weaved through the chaos, her voice cutting through the comms. "Stay with me. Hit them where they're blind." Her squadron split and struck the enemy's flanks. Missiles and cannons shredding alien fighters before they could react. The coalition fired back desperately. Massive plasma beams ripped through space, tearing chunks from asteroids and igniting Saturn's thin atmosphere. Human ships shuddered under the impacts, shields flaring, armor cracking. But for every human ship that faltered, 10 alien ships fell. The humans fought with brutal efficiency, wasting no movement, no shot. Each kill was deliberate. Each maneuver was designed to break not just ships, but morale. Admiral Kelver watched in disbelief as his fleet collapsed around him. His officers shouted for reinforcements, but there were none left to call. "This is impossible," he hissed. They were sleeping for centuries. How can they fight like this? No one answered, because the truth was too terrifying. The humans had not forgotten. They had been waiting, sharpening their blades in silence. Then the humans revealed something more. From the depths of Saturn's shadow, a second wave of ships emerged, colossal carriers unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Their hulls bristled with launch bays, and from them poured swarms of drones, each one armed and guided with ruthless precision. The drones moved like a living storm, overwhelming the coalition's defenses, cutting apart cruisers and battleships with cold efficiency. On the bridge of the Endurance, Claire's voice crackled through the combs. They came here thinking. We were myths, she said, her tone sharp with fire. Let's remind them what nightmares feel like. The battle did not last long after that. Coalition formations broke, captains abandoning their posts, ships scattering in desperation. Some tried to flee into the void, but the humans were relentless. Faster than light drives flared as human ships intercepted, cutting down escape routes. By the end, Saturn's orbit was littered with burning wrecks. Glowing trails of shattered fleets drifting like ghosts among the rings, when the last alien transmission crackled into silence. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his eyes hard. Around him, the crew sat in stunned silence at the magnitude of what they had done. Hundreds of alien ships destroyed. Thousands of soldiers gone. The warnings had not been myths. They were truth. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy's arrogance had paid in blood. And still, Daniel knew this was only the beginning. He stood, his voice echoing across the Resolute. Send the message. Every star, every empire, every ruler must hear it. Earth is awake. And with that, the storm of humanity prepared to move outward, carrying war to those who had dared disturb their sleep. The fires of Saturn still burned behind them. When the humans made their choice, they would not wait for another invasion. They would not let the galaxy regroup. For too long, Earth had been silent, a world hidden behind oceans and shadows. Now that the galaxy had disturbed their sleep, there would be no silence. Only thunder. The Resolute led the first counterstrike. Daniel Brooks stood at its command, his face calm, though his eyes betrayed the storm inside him. Around him, his crew watched as the jump drives powered up, the air trembling with energy older than most civilizations alive. We do not defend, Daniel said softly, his words carrying through the ship. We hunt. The fleet obeyed, human. Warships vanished in bursts of light, crossing gulfs of space with precision no alien vessel could match. Their destination, a Cathari colony world on the rim of the Dominion. It was a place of slaves and mines where the weak were crushed beneath. The boots of hunters. The aliens there thought they were safe, far from Earth, shielded by the Dominion's might. They were wrong. The first dreadnought arrived above the colony without warning. Its shadow fell across the skies like the arrival of a god. Panic spread as sirens wailed and soldiers scrambled to their stations. Then more ships appeared, destroyers, carriers, interceptors filling the sky with the thunder of engines. The colony's defense fleet rushed to meet them, dozens of cruisers bristling with weapons. For a brief moment, the Cathari commanders believed they could repel the intruders. The humans struck like lightning. Rail slugs cut through enemy shields, tearing cruisers in half. Drone swarms poured from carriers, moving with frightening unity as they dismantled ships piece by piece. Claire Morgan led her fighters through the chaos, her squadron weaving between explosions, striking engines, ripping weapons from hulls. She moved like fire across the void, her voice calm as she guided her pilots. Make them see us, she said. Make them remember. On the surface, the enslaved species of the colony looked up in awe. They had been told humans were extinct, that Earth was nothing but a dead myth. But now they saw human ships raining fire upon their masters, dismantling the Dominion's fleets with terrifying ease. Some cried out prayers, others simply stood, frozen, knowing they were witnessing history. Daniel's voice echoed through every channel, transmitted directly to the planet. This is humanity, he declared. We are not dust. We are not gone. You came to wake us, and now we are awake. To the enslaved, know this we come for you. To the oppressors, remember this, you should have listened. The humans did not stop at victory. They made the colony a message. The Cathari war banners were torn down, their command posts obliterated. those who ruled with cruelty were left. In ruins, their ships broken, their armies scattered. But the slave souls who had suffered were freed. Human marines landed, their armor heavy, their eyes burning with purpose, and they cut the chains with their own hands. To the freed people, the humans were not just warriors. They were storms given flesh, storms that had come for justice. The message spread across the galaxy faster than light. Everywhere, whispers rose. The humans had returned. They did not defend. They conquered. They did not ask for mercy. They demanded respect. Empires that had once mocked Earth fell silent, their leaders trembling as reports poured in. One colony burned, then another, and another. Each time the pattern was the same. Alien. Fleets crushed, oppressors shattered, the enslaved freed. But it was not just vengeance. Humanity was reshaping the rules of the galaxy. They struck with purpose, targeting those who had mocked the old warnings. Those who had built empires on the suffering of others. To some, this made them saviors. To others, it made them executioners. But to all, it made them undeniable. Claire sat in the cockpit of her fighter, drifting above the ruins of a fallen cruiser, her breath steady, but her heart heavy. She knew the galaxy would never forgive them, never forget them. Humanity had declared war not on a single empire, but on arrogance itself. She closed her eyes, her voice quiet over the comms. "We were silent too long," she whispered. "Now, they'll hear us everywhere," and the galaxy did hear. Across the stars, leaders gathered in secret chambers, their voices trembling as they spoke the words none had dared to say aloud in centuries. The humans are awake. The galaxy trembled. As news of the human counterstrike spread, entire dominions that had stood for millennia were suddenly unsure of their strength. The Cathari coalition, once proud and united, now began to splinter under the weight of fear. What had started as a bold invasion of Sol had become a disaster. Of legend, fleets lay in ruins, colonies burned, and the humans showed no signs of slowing. In war councils scattered across the stars, alien leaders argued bitterly. Some demanded an armistice, insisting they must sue for peace before their empires collapsed. Others, blinded by pride, shouted for more ships, more soldiers, more fire to drown Earth before humanity could rise any further. The chambers filled with accusations and rage. But behind every word was a creeping dreadnought. One truly believed they could win. Admiral Kelver sat alone in his flagship, now leading only fragments of what had once been the most powerful fleet. In the Dominion, reports filled his desk: entire squadrons gone, colonies overrun, allies abandoning the cause. He clenched his claws into the steel, his pride bleeding into desperation. "We are not beaten," he hissed to himself, though even he no longer believed it. His officers, once loyal, now avoided his gaze. In their eyes was the truth. They had awakened something they could not put back to sleep. Meanwhile, humanity pressed forward with relentless fury. From the resolute, Daniel Brooks directed fleet movements like a conductor guiding an orchestra of destruction. Every battle was precise, every strike deliberate. He was not reckless, he was calculated. Where the coalition was weakest, the humans struck hardest. Where morale was already broken, the humans crushed it completely. He knew they could not fight the entire galaxy at once, so he turned their strength into fear, making every enemy feel the shadow of human warships looming above their skies. Claire Morgan fought not from command decks, but at the tip of the spear. Her squadrons were the ghosts of war, darting into enemy territory, ripping supply lines to shreds, and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. She flew as if she carried the weight of Earth's silence on her shoulders, her voice hard as steel as she spoke to her pilots. "They thought we were forgotten. Make them choke on our memory." Every mission carved the legend deeper in two. the galaxy's heart. Yet not all enemies chose battle. Some species, realizing the futility, abandoned the coalition entirely. They sent envoys, their voices trembling as they begged forgiveness, swearing they had never truly wanted war. Others turned on the Cathari, blaming them for the catastrophe, breaking centuries of alliances overnight. The mighty coalition fractured, its unity dissolving into ash. But still, there were those too proud to surrender. Entire fleets rallied. Together, swearing they would erase Earth even if it cost them everything. They believed sheer numbers would crush the humans. And so, the Great Armada assembled thousands of ships, more firepower than the galaxy had seen in generations. They would strike back, they said, and end this nightmare once and for all. When Daniel received the reports of the gathering fleet, he only leaned forward in his chair, his eyes burning with calm fire. "Good," he said. "Let them come." Claire stood beside him on the Resolute, her gaze fixed on the stars. "They don't understand," she whispered. "They think numbers will save them." Daniel nodded slowly, his voice heavy with the weight of truth. "Numbers don't matter, not against us." They should have listened. And so, as the coalition bled from within, tearing itself apart with fear and pride, humanity stood ready. Their ships gleamed in the darkness, their engines humming like the heartbeat of a predator. The humans had not just returned, they had become the storm, and soon, the greatest fleet ever assembled by alien hands would discover what the universe had tried to warn them for centuries. Humanity could not be broken. Whispers spread faster than light. In every port city, in every orbital station, in the crowded markets of alien worlds, a single story burned on every tongue. The humans are awake. At first, it was murmurs shared in fear, but soon it became cries of panic, shouted warnings, and desperate prayers. The galaxy had mocked the old records, calling them superstition. Now those same records were treated as holy scripture. Every line about humans was read again, every fragment studied, every myth retold with trembling voices. Children on distant worlds asked their parents, "Are the humans coming here?" Entire councils struggled to answer, because no one knew where the human fleets would strike next. Wherever they appeared, empires fell. Wherever their warships cast shadows, oppressors begged for mercy. And still, the humans pressed onward, their storm impossible to stop. On the bridge of the Resolute, Daniel Brooks stood in silence as reports filled the air. World after world was surrendering without a fight. Governors who once boasted of their armies now sent desperate messages offering tribute, offering loyalty, offering anything that might spare them. Daniel's jaw tightened as he read the pleas. He had not set out to become a conqueror, but history was painting him as one anyway. The humans had become the sword the galaxy feared. Claire Morgan, however, saw the truth most clearly. She sat in her fighter, drifting in the stillness after another battle, watching the wreckage of alien ships glitter like dying stars. She whispered into her comms, though no one answered. "They don't see us as people anymore," she said. "We're not human to them. We're legends, and legends are always feared." Her words echoed into the silence, haunting even her own heart. On alien worlds, statues crumbled as desperate citizens tore down the symbols of their rulers, terrified of being seen as enemies of Earth. Some races began painting human faces onto their walls, treating them as gods, begging for protection. Others cursed the humans, calling them devils who had risen to destroy the galaxy. But whether seen as saviors or demons, one truth could not be denied. Humanity had returned. And nothing would ever be the same. Even the oldest empires, ones that had stood since before Earth's first fires were lit, stirred uneasily. Ancient monarchs stared into the void with eyes that had seen centuries of conquest and war, and for the first time in generations, they felt doubt. Could it be true? Were the humans the same warriors who had once burned through empires and then vanished into silence? The stories grew with each passing day. Tales of a dreadnought rising from the oceans, its cannons tearing entire fleets apart. Rumors of human fighters that could outfly any alien ship, their pilots moving like lightning itself. Whispers that human soldiers could walk through fire, their armor unbroken, their eyes merciless. The galaxy no longer needed proof, the fear was enough. Daniel knew the effect was intentional. Every victory, every strike, every colony freed was a message. It was not enough to win battles. The humans were shaping the galaxy's mind, planting their return deep into the hearts of all who watched. Fear was their ally, legend their weapon. They must remember, Daniel said to his officers, his voice steady. If they ever forget, they will try again. We cannot let them forget. Claire stood with him in the command chamber, her eyes distant. And if the galaxy remembers us as monsters? She asked quietly. Daniel turned to her, his expression unreadable. Then they will still remember. Across the stars, the legend of humanity was reborn. They were no longer ghosts of a forgotten world. They were storms wrapped in steel, fire given flesh, shadows that turned empires to ash. The galaxy had been warned for centuries, but now the warning was not in whispers or broken records. It was written in burning fleets, shattered colonies, and the endless echo of dreadnought engines. The humans had awakened, and the galaxy could do nothing but tremble. The war ended not with a final battle, but with silence. The coalition that had once roared across the stars lay in ruins. Its fleets were ash and its worlds shaken. One by one, the proud banners of empires were lowered, not from choice, but from necessity. They had seen what happened to those who stood against Earth. They had watched entire armadas crumble in hours. And so, when the last surviving rulers gathered, their voices were not filled with defiance. They were filled with fear. Envoys were sent to Seoul, trembling as they traveled into the heart of the storm they had unleashed. They came not in warships, but in small diplomatic vessels stripped of weapons, painted white as a sign of surrender. The journey itself was a humiliation, but survival demanded it. When they entered Earth's orbit, they were met not with destruction, but with silence. Human warships hung above the planet like mountains suspended in the sky, their weapons glowing faintly, their presence alone enough to freeze the envoy's blood. They were escorted to the Resolute. Its halls were stark, cold, alive with the hum of ancient power. Human soldiers flanked the corridors, their faces unreadable, their eyes sharp with purpose. Every step reminded the envoys that they were intruders in a place that had once been declared forbidden. At the heart of the ship, Daniel Brooks awaited them. He stood tall, his uniform simple, his expression calm. Claire Morgan stood at his side, silent, her gaze like a blade. The envoys bowed, though their pride screamed at the act and stammered their words of surrender. They begged for peace, for mercy, for the chance to rebuild what they had so foolishly destroyed. Daniel listened. Without a word, his eyes fixed on them with a weight that felt older than time itself. When they finished, silence filled the chamber, heavy and endless. Finally, Daniel spoke. His voice was quiet, but it struck harder than any weapon. You were warned. The words hung in the air, more powerful than all the speeches the envoys had prepared. His voice was not angry, not triumphant, was absolute. It carried the echo of centuries, the truth that had always been written into the stars. The warning had never been myth. It had been history, repeated so that no one would dare awaken Earth again. And yet, they had ignored it. Claire stepped forward, her voice colder still. We did not seek this war. We did not wake ourselves. You came to us, you thought us weak. And now you see the cost. Her eyes swept over them, and none of the envoys could meet her gaze. The terms were simple. The coalition was dissolved. The chains of slavery across the galaxy were to be broken. No empire would rise again on the backs of the weak. And every star nation was to remember, always, that humanity was watching. Failure to obey would not bring negotiation, it would bring fire. The envoys accepted because they had no choice. They bowed again and again, promising obedience, swearing loyalty, vowing never to disturb Sol again. But in their hearts, they knew it was more than loyalty. It was survival. When the envoys departed, Claire turned to Daniel. "Do you think they'll keep their word?" she asked. Daniel's gaze drifted to the stars beyond the viewport. "Fear lasts longer than promises," he said. "And right now, fear is enough." Above Earth, the human fleet drifted in silence, their weapons still glowing, their hulls gleaming like the blades of gods. Across the galaxy, the final message had already spread, no longer whispered, no longer doubted. Do not wake the humans. And now, no one ever would again.